This is The Art of Startup War, and I am your host, Brian McMahon. I am the sensei here at Expert Dojo, the fastest growing startup accelerator in Southern California. Now, in the first 2 seasons, we answered your questions about how to find investment for your business. We brought in the most accomplished investors in startup in America. You can find it on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Now, here in season 3, we're flipping the script. We're going to hear real stories from entrepreneurs who are in the trenches today. In these episodes, we're going to take our guests through the storytelling model called the entrepreneur's journey. We'll hear about what sparked their call to entrepreneurship, help they received along the way, forces they overcame, dark times and revelations. So join us every Tuesday, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and start the week a smarter entrepreneur. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock. It's Tuesday morning. We're back again. Together, I'm here with an epic startup. We're going to, not just epic because the founder is the most incredible CEO that I've ever met, not just epic because the company is like the funnest company in the entire world, but epic because thanks to Shipsomnia, I'm going on the best cruise I've ever been on in my entire life in about 9 months' time. Welcome, Alessandra.
Thank you so much for having me, Brian. Excited to be here. What an introduction. Wow.
It's going to be exciting. So normally in the podcast, we talk about the investment journey of getting from when you start off a company all the way through to, the success that you're at today. With Shipsomnia, it is even going to be more exciting because you literally pulled off the impossible. And for anybody out there who's listening and you're thinking, oh, Brian, it's really hard. Like, I had to find investment so I could build my tech platform. Or you've no idea how hard it is to build an app. Try launching 2, not 1, 2 3,000-person cruises on a cruise ship that you're chartering from people who've never heard of you before with only a couple $100,000 in seed money. Impossible.
Yes. Now that back then when I was sort of in the process of trying to make it happen, it's kind of like you forge forward and you don't really think about it. But now, looking backwards, definitely was quite the accomplishment for sure.
I mean, I couldn't get a dinghy boat if somebody's give to me if I had money. Like a cruise ship, like you have to think Titanic. For anyone who's trying to visualize it, think of the movie Titanic. Think of the amount of berths that you have in there. Think of all of the activities that have to happen on the ship. Now, we're going to talk about Shipsomnia in a second, but imagine how incredibly difficult it is to get someone to trust you with that with only, $350,000 in seed money?
Yes.
Incredible. Let's start with the story of Shipsomnia and take us through the epic adventures that are being created on the cruise and the fact of how it started off. Actually, just take us through from the start. I don't want to be a spoiler.
Okay, so I guess I'll start a little bit from my background of how I came about to start Shipsomnia. So my co-founder and I, we've been in the entertainment space for about 10 years. That's when we started. I used to own a nightclub back in Thailand, was based in Asia, and that's where we met. And I met Jay. Back then he was working as a creative director for one of the biggest youth travel company here in the U.S. called Rustic Pathways, and he was sort of complaining that his job was not creative enough, and still travel is still very much corporate. And he was like, I would love to enter the entertainment business, and I was kind of like, then why don't you do it?
Yeah, and he's an obsessive, one of the greatest creative people that I know.
Oh, absolutely, one of the most talented people I've ever met. And so we kind of tested it out. We started working together by throwing events in my own venue first. And then it wasn't a journey even for me to sort of discover my true passions and talent and strength as an entrepreneur. And, we quickly realized that for me, my passion wasn't really so much into, running a nightclub, on a daily basis, but was in sort of throwing this epic, amazing experiences for people to enjoy. So
wonderful escapism, right? So with these
Absolutely.
themed events where you enter into an Alice in Wonderland,
Absolutely.
and you can just live there until you got to go home.
Absolutely, and that's where it's all started. So it's always been themed events. So we've done a lot of themed events in my own venue, and then we co-founded an events company together where we started throwing festivals. And then big brands started taking notice of our events, and essentially it developed into them. We're talking about companies like Bacardi, Heineken. In Asia, it's very much sort of the entertainment festival industry is very much based around alcohol brands.
Yeah.
So they started to take notice of our events, and they approached us and said, "You look, we have annual budgets to throw our festivals. We'd like for you to help us conceptualize our theme festivals and kind of come up with their whole entire marketing campaign from concepts to launch." So, and that's also sort of the accumulation of experience that we've had from not just conceptualizing a themed event, but also our marketing strength, because we've done it for really big corporations. So we understand from a sponsorship perspective what these brands are looking for, and sort of the big global approach when it comes to a big marketing campaign. And that's all sort of experience that we've all brought into Shipsomnia as our sort of like our masterpiece. Like they say, every most overnight successes are 10 years in the making.
Right.
And that's definitely the case for us.
Right. And you were building until one moment it just came as a vision to you that you're going to create the greatest carnival on earth on a cruise ship and create these mythical legends of the sea around it. Like, how did this come piece by piece, or was it a vision?
It was more of a, out of a failure, actually. When one door closes, another one opens. So we were working on a really massive entertainment complex in Thailand. We found this piece of land that was owned by the Minister of Finance of the country, and we had this vision of building this entire entertainment complex with like a big concert hall where we could throw our events and sort of capitalize on all the brands connections that we grew at that point.
Wow.
So it was going to be like a concert hall, a live music restaurant, a nightclub, a day club, like 5 different zones. And we conceptualized the whole thing again from the ground up, created an architectural 3D design and business plan. And I was able to reach the Minister of Finance and kind of pitched it to him and to his investment company. And they loved it so much that they were like, okay, if I'm going to invest in this kind of dollars on my own property, I'd like for you guys to sort of take charge and rebrand my entire property. So this piece of land was also, there was like like a lifestyle mall, and then there was like a hotel at the very entrance of the road. So he was like, I would like for you to sort of bring it all together, rebrand the entire mall, and this so that it all comes together with the entertainment complex. And so the deal actually went through, and we started construction on the project.
Wow.
And that was about like 3.5 years ago when there was a military coup d'etat in Thailand.
Well, of all the luck.
Yes.
You got me saying, like, I mean, it's terrible for the people who are engaged, but I mean, seriously, you know how hard it is to reach out to like one of the top 3 most important people in the country.
Yes.
To then get that person to agree for a startup to actually redevelop and be in charge of the entire future of what the face of their entertainment is going to look like.
Yes.
Then break ground, then go forward thinking, the only thing that can stop us right now is a military coup.
Oh, absolutely. Talk about bad timing, right? I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that, for sure.
That's got to be the lowest point, right? Because you built everything you'd built for years.
Yes.
Gets that point. And it's the lowest point, not because you messed up or you did it wrong.
Yes.
Because we do those. I don't think they're the lowest points. I think they're the points where you kind of say, God, I'm a dick. But the lowest point is when you do everything right and you bring it to a place of the greatest potential opportunity of your life, and it gets snatched away from you, and you think, what the fuck?
Absolutely. Talking about, unforeseen and things that you can't control and just bad timing. But now I look backwards and I'm like, thank God that happened, because I'm in such a better place with such a better project, something that can scale on an international, global level. And if it wasn't for that shutting on my face, I wouldn't have opened this new door. So literally,
how did that happen though? So it finishes, there's a coup, which means you're racing out of the country, I'm guessing, the same as everybody else who's normal. And and then you what? Like, how do you take that vision to suddenly saying, we need to get a couple of $100,000 so we can get a cruise liner to give us one of the biggest cruise ships they have to create one of the greatest cruises that have ever been launched?
I went into hibernation for 6 months at my mom's house in
Yeah.
pain and said, you know what, it's time to sort of, I'm done. Like, I was done with Thailand at that point, because I've also had a lot of sort of scars and battle wounds from even just running the events and nightclub in a sort of third world country where, you know, it's very much corrupted, and unless you have, you know, good connections with the cops and the military, they shut you down, and it's tough. It's really tough.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know, business is hard enough on its own, like put on top all this craziness of instability from the political side of the country. It was like, I'm done. So I went into hibernation for 6 months and started writing a business plan, and myself and Jay was like, okay, we've got enough experience. It's like, screw this, you know, we're going to conceptualize something on a global scale, and just try it out and just go for it. So that's when the idea of the Shipsomnia emerged, and it took us about 6 months to sort of get the graphics down, the branding down, design a website, a business plan ready. And then, I mean, at that point, because we lost everything on that entertainment complex, because we also did put some of our own cash into it as well.
Of course.
We were left with literally like a few $1,000s. And
Wow.
I said, I don't care. I'm out. I'm leaving. And Singapore was kind of like the closest to home, and where obviously it's a country that's very well respected on a global platform in business, and laws are laws and everything's by the book.
Yeah, I mean, the only coup in Singapore is like maybe if somebody over tips. Like, oh, did you see that? Just get 22.5%. Whoa, we gotta be careful. Yeah, so it's like super stable.
Oh, for sure.
Really strong environment, good strong investment environment as well, right?
Yes. They're not Singaporeans, they're definitely not entrepreneurial themselves.
Yeah.
But they like to invest in entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And because of their corporate jobs, like pays really well, they always have, you know, a few, you know, 50K or, you know, a few $100,000 saved up to invest in something. And they're always looking for, you know, creative projects and unique ideas to invest in. So yeah, I went there, and I was like, okay, my money is literally going to last me like in Singapore.
A day.
Yes. So it's like I literally have maybe like 2 months at most to make it happen. And then I started networking and just meeting as many people as possible. And then,
what did that look like? You are truly the greatest person I've ever met at being able to break into circles, which should be impossible to break into. I mean, you mentioned obviously with the minister down in Thailand. I mean, nobody breaks in there. I know of other stories that we'll get to with high-level celebrities where nobody can get in to see. So I'm really interested to know how you went from arriving in a new country, no friends, no contacts, no networking skills, to them being able to raise money, to them being able to launch the company properly from there. Like, did you just wake up in the morning and join the chamber, which actually in that type of place would be quite powerful? Or did you look at networking groups, or did you reach out to people? Like, what did it look like?
it was literally just networking events, because I literally didn't know anybody. And obviously I don't want to say it was a bit of luck, but because at the end of the day, you make your own luck.
Mm-hmm.
But I met a group of friends that, you know, took a bet on me. Basically, they were IT directors, very corporate jobs, and they basically, you know, saw this sexy, cool, creative project in front of them. I can honestly say that they probably had no idea what they were really investing in, or the risk associated with what I wanted to create by being totally underfunded.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I can do it with $350,000. You know, like, I'm just gonna negotiate my way through with the cruise line and make it happen. And yeah, they just, I don't know, they just took a bet on me basically, and it all happened.
But you weren't afraid to ask. So these were not. So again, for people listening, these are normal people who have a little bit of extra money.
Yes, I have to. They weren't like sort of institutional investors, professional investors.
But that's where most of the money gets raised from. So the important thing is, look, you did a couple of things. And by the way, so I don't think it's such a big stretch. I mean, we have a brilliant entrepreneur who's got a phenomenally creative partner. We have tremendous domain experience in creating some of the greatest experiential events within a country. We have an ex-minister of that country prepared to actually let them set up one of the greatest places they're going to have for entertainment. And now that person wants to come in and launch mythical adventures on the ocean within cruise liners. Like, it's a safe bet. And I think that, sometimes we underplay ourselves a little bit, but we have to ask ourselves, do we have a safe-ish bet, or as safe as possible for the people that we're asking? And if we do, it's then not a surprise that they want to invest in. So for me, it's not a surprise that they would be prepared to put the money into you to actually get it started. Although I will admit 350 grand is tough to launch a few cruises. So how did you do that?
The risk was monstrous.
Because now you did the first bit, you've persuaded them to give you the money, you've $350,000 in the bank. Now you have to go to the cruise company and convince them to give you a ship that normally they would want $1 million down on, and everything that goes with that.
I think for an early stage brand or company, a lot of it that you have to play is perception. And obviously the branding and the quality of what you're presenting has to be really respectable.
Yeah.
So we really took a lot of time to actually conceptualize it and brand it and design the graphics of the website and create the content to launch it. So even though it was a completely brand new original idea that wasn't proven yet, when the cruise line saw our website and what we were going to do, given that sort of the specialty cruise industry is something that already exists, nothing like our concept, but I mean, like, there's people that charter cruises to do like a yoga cruise or a fitness cruise, or, any kind of niche concept that has a big enough of a following to fill a ship. So every cruise line has a charter department. So they thought that, wow, this looks like, something so mythical, like a Disney type of concept. And obviously we were using sort of our credibility coming from the festival industry, having done many events, just not on a ship yet. I was able to sort of convince them that we were professionals and that we were going to do this and make it a success. With them, obviously, the whole thing with chartering a cruise ship to set your own experience and launch it and sell it to the market, you have to have at least $1 million, especially as a first-time client. I can probably say that I'm probably the only one that was able to pull it off without a bank guarantee. Yeah. Especially as a first-time client. Obviously, if you've done several years of business with them, then obviously, they can kind of loosen up their policies. But for a first-time client, 100%, the first thing they're going to do is we need a bank guarantee, which basically means that you have to show the bank that you have $1 million deposited with the bank. In case of payment default, then the cruise line would deduct from the bank guarantee. And I was sort of trying to, always look at different angles of, okay, how am I going to do this? What am I going to tell them to let them give me the ship to try it out? Because the first one was in Asia, I asked them, looking at their website, and I asked them, okay, how far ahead do you actually release your sailings to the public? And they were like, it depends in different markets and different regions. But for Asia, it's about 7 months in. And I was like, okay, great. I'm going to launch it like 11 months ahead of time before you even put out the sailing out to the international public. This way you can help me mitigate my risk. I'm going to take all the sort of marketing spent risk by testing it out. And if the launch is a success, then I'm going to go back.
It's a great idea. So again, you're focusing totally on market validation. Listen, we're not even going to give you any risk at all. We're going to give you no reason that you can say no. Even if we fail in our worst possible failure level, you're still going to be able to do exactly what you intended to do in the first place.
Correct. Beautiful. For them, it was just basically just allowing us to use their cruise line name and ship. Right. Beautiful. That was the only risk, basically.
Yeah. And you had the opposite problem, right? You sold out so fast.
Yeah, like, so again, it went back and forth. Even then, it went back and forth for quite some time, where at the end of it all, I had to sort of agree to give them like a 10% deposit. And I said, okay, fine, let's do this. So I gave them about $100,000, and I had about, at that point, like $200,000 left to push with marketing. And so Jay and I, we just strategized and came up with the whole strategy behind the launch, and launched. And we went viral, and within a week, we had over $1 million in sales. And obviously, I didn't go to the bank for a bank guarantee. Because that would have been double the cost for us, because I was bootstrapping it to sales. I just went to the cruise line and paid them cash all up front.
Amazing. And how did you do that? How did you manage to get so viral? I remember at the time they said you out Ibiza's Ibiza. And if anybody knows how many impressions Ibiza get when it comes to dance music, when it comes to just fun and entertainment, like, it's insane. How many impressions did you get?
So we launched 2 cruises as proof of concept. One was in Asia, out of Asia, and one out of Europe. So we went viral both times. The first time, we were the #1 most read story of all time, with 1.2 million readers. Our article had 1.2 million readers and over 400,000 shares. And this is from the biggest online electronic music platform in the US. And we got like over 56 countries booking on the cruise. And then the second time, one of our video content went viral and got 28 million hits.
Okay, so everybody listening would be pissed if I didn't ask you, like, how did you do that? Because we all want the same thing. We want people just to listen to us for a second. We don't even need 1.2 million hits. Like, how did you manage to take a brand that didn't exist, that hadn't even been launched yet, to a place where tens of millions of people were now seeing exactly what you were doing? Was it you, or was it PR?
No, it was all part of the strategy that we came up with. I mean, we knew that we had to sort of think of something that would hack the headlines and sort of push for the campaign to go viral. And when we were kind of like in the process of conceptualizing the whole thing and just talking to friends and people in general, and one thing that caught our attention was that every time that we mentioned, like, oh, it's like the Tomorrowland of the Sea, people were like, oh my God, that's so cool. And they got it right away. Because you have to have some kind of reference when it's a good idea, when it's a new concept and idea, and you kind of have to make people sort of visualize and understand what we're doing. So Tomorrowland is hailed as the #1 sort of festival brand in the world. And a lot of their success is due to their sort of attention to details and quality of production value that they put together. They have the best production in the world, hands down, when it comes to a festival, and their theme is revolved around fairy tale creatures. So they have massive stage productions with, fairy tale books and fairy tale creatures and all that, and which makes the experience quite immersive, and it takes the festival experience to a whole new level. And we conceptualized Shipsomnia by sort of rewriting and taking a new spin to all of the mythical legends of the seas. So when we were talking to people and we were like, oh, it's like the Tomorrowland of the seas, people immediately understood, like, okay, the sort of mythical production and all that, but like the sea version of it. And people were getting really excited about it. So that's when we kind of, okay, this is we've got something here, So when we were preparing our press release, we made sure that was like all over it. Like, oh, a quote from me saying, oh, we want to become kind of like the Tomorrowland of the Sea and blah, blah, blah. And we sort of put that keyword in like several times into the press release. And then the biggest online electronic music platform sort of took that headline. Obviously, again, like I said, it's all about sort of the quality of the product that you also put out. So before giving us that headline, they actually went to our site and saw that the graphics were up to par with Tomorrowland and everything looked really at a high level. And they kind of picked that and gave us the headline, the Tomorrowland of the Sea has arrived. And paint
that picture of the first cruise. So it's the Tomorrowland of the Seas. It's mythical adventures of the ocean. It's experiential. It's 50 of the top electronic DJs in the world. It's a cruise for 7 days. So what did it look like on board?
The experience on the ship?
Yeah.
So we basically put up 5 different theme stages. And these theme stages, again, going back to what's unique about what we do, is that we tell a story behind each sailing, or chapters as we call them. And we create content that tells a story. And from that content, we translate that content into the immersive live experience on the ship so that people can actually immerse themselves as part of the story.
Yeah.
So from the story, the first chapter was called The Search for Lost Rhythm, and it was about this, basically this portal, and people immersing themselves into this portal and sort of entering the Shipsomnia world with all of the mythical legends of the sea, coming on board the ship and celebrating this festival at sea. We built 5 different theme stages, all fully immersive, that continue the story of what we were telling. So it's 5 different stages, playing music basically from
And everybody's
6
dressed
a.m.
up, right? You've got octopuses out there. You've got
I mean, we have this theme night, which is our signature theme night, that's called the Shipsomnia Ball, and that's where the legends of the sea come to life, and we entice everybody to dress up. Anything ocean theme goes. So we have like people dressed as Jack Sparrow, to SpongeBob, to like octopuses, to mermaids, to you name it. And that's really like sort of a surreal moment where you're in the middle of the ocean with this sort of steampunk aquatic mythical production and performers, and everybody gets into it, where everybody on the main deck comes out like in some like mythical ocean theme.
crazy costume, right?
Oh yeah, they get,
and then they just dance all night.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's like it's festival, it's concerts, but also it's travel. We integrate a lot of activities throughout the day, because it's not like a one-night concert. I mean, it's 5 days. It's 5 days, 5 nights. And we stop at different ports of call, so we create different customized activities. And activities on the ship where a lot of the artists take part in it, like, mini golf tournament with a famous DJ, or a cooking class with an Italian DJ, or some really cool stuff that, because we have to play with people's energy. It can't be like going 100 miles an hour all the time. You gotta have to, create a vacation experience. Again, it's not just a festival. It's very much a vacation experience.
Yeah, and there's a strong eco message in there as well, right?
Part of the mission is to sort of educate people about environmental issues such as global warming, toxic in the seafood chain, and plastic in the ocean, through the power of storytelling. So there's an underlying environmental message behind all these stories that we create.
Beautiful. So I see it. Here's with me. You're like a 2-book series, okay? First book, you got the nightclubs, which you became amazing at and really well known. Second chapter was about going into with the minister and building what was supposed to be built, and then having the coup happen. And then third chapter, which is where the goodie wins in the end, you have the successful launch, right, of these 2 incredible cruises, which I want to know afterwards, because at the moment you're speaking matter of fact, but it must have been so incredibly, such a powerful feeling, as especially the first one launched. So you get to the bit at the end of the book where you realize, oh my God, the hero is going to win. I'm the hero. We've created this incredible experience for everyone. It worked. And I'm going to get to the second book in a second, but first book is just talk to us a little bit about what that feeling was like.
It was out of vengeance. Let's put it that way. It was definitely an epic moment, because again, it was showing our talent on a global scale, right? Which is what we were ready for. And to be able to be dubbed by international media as the Tomorrowland of the Sea, which again is they've been going on for 15 years, and they're hailed as the #1 festival brand in the world, and get bookings from over 70 countries, flying from all parts of the world just to attend what you created is definitely an epic feeling for sure.
But an epic comes close, but was it a epic? I have gone through such a journey I just want to cry that I'm seeing this, or epic that I feel really proud, or epic that screw you, we made it, or epic gratitude. Like, I really want to get it because it's such a tough journey for you to get all the way to there. Like that feeling as you get on the ship, you're watching maybe at the ball, the Shipsomnia ball. Like, what was it like?
I think it's also just excitement, because that's when you kind of realize we've created something really special and something that could really scale. And that's when you're kind of, I've people that know me know that I like to think big. And I think it's easier in some extent to think big because people don't care to invest in small projects.
Yeah.
They definitely care to, I'm going to get into it in a second, how it's now developed into sort of launching
It's the second book.
The next Disney type of brand
is
for
the sequel.
millennials and adults.
This is the sequel. Because the first book is a huge, big success. Tick in the box. Tick, 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 tick. I did it. We did it with Jay, right?
Yes.
Finally, after so many mini successes, we hit the jackpot. We prove it. We had thousands of people coming to the ship. Okay, so let's get to the sequel. Let's get to the next book. And the next book is, how do we go from taking a concept which is now proven, it's in place, everybody's loved it, investors love it, and they've put money into it, the consumers and people have come on the ship and loved it, and the press loves this as well. How do we now take that to becoming a global brand with dozens of ships traveling around the world, all at the same time in the future, where it's the biggest themed entertainment on sea brand that's ever existed?
Absolutely. And I a lot of people now, because of what we're about to launch, which is a whole different beast, they ask me like, did you have this vision from the start? And I say, absolutely not. I think most entrepreneurs, they create something and then you kind of start developing the vision bit by bit, and you kind of think of the strategy and you kind of connect the dots where you get to a point of like the masterpiece vision.
Yeah.
And that was exactly the same for me. I mean, obviously we knew that I had this vision of obviously wanting to scale it globally, because we saw the potential right away. I mean, over 100 countries came to attend. So it's definitely has a very global sort of appeal, international appeal from the get-go. But then the thought was around, okay, what is our core competency? The core competency of the brand is the storytelling. That's what sets us apart from any direct or indirect competition, and it's something that is unique because we created this IP, right? We created this creative IP around the brand that has endless boundaries, and that's what sort of captures the consumer's imagination, and we take them on a ride with that. And creativity at the end of the day is one of the most important things, because without creativity you can't attract consumers. And I said, okay, how do we take this to a whole different level and invest in the core competency of the brand? And that's when, okay, what about Hollywood? What about taking the IP that we created and sort of applying the Hollywood strategy into it and create Hollywood quality content that tells a story, exactly like a movie, basically short films. And when this idea started developing in my head, I was like, okay, first of all, number one, if I want to start scaling this, I have to find a way to fully capitalize the company, because you can't write multi-million-dollar operations around the world on fumes with no cash. So that was obviously number one. Number two, because I had this very clear vision of how to scale it by applying this Hollywood strategy and investing in the core competency of the brand, I was like, okay, definitely Los Angeles. There's no other place to go but Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. And that's when we're like, okay, we're going. Said goodbye to Asia, and then I arrived here in end of February. And again, going back to sort of like the fully developed vision of the business is to expand the creative IP of the brand into like an entertainment franchise. that can expand into movies, games, obviously this fully immersive experiences through the sailings, all the way to having your own experiential cruise line / floating theme park.
Like a Disneyland for grown-ups.
Absolutely. It's exactly that. It's the Disney brand model, but sort of like a cooler version targeted towards not kids, but millennials and adults.
Yeah, I love it. And then so you came here, you immediately broke into some of the biggest Hollywood A-listers around. You have met with those A-listers, you've discussed plans with those A-listers. I know a number of them are tied in with the brand. You are working with one of the biggest production houses in the world right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if you can release that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the whole Hollywood thing was, it started off with like, if we were to do this first movie trailer, right? And of our new chapter that tells a story and sort of produce it in the form of a movie trailer, who would be the absolute best fit for the brand if I could pick anybody? And both myself and Jay were like, hands down, Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Not just because of who he represents as Jack Sparrow and we're on a ship, but just because, we're a very cool, sexy brand and, he kind of represents that in his persona. And also like when it comes to sort of actors that would crush it when it comes to playing quirky roles and fantasy roles.
Yeah.
It's
tick,
yeah. So I was like, let's see how we can sort of reach him and get in touch with him through his agent or whatnot. But there was also kind of like the idea of like, it's not just getting an actor to star in it, but it's also like having a production house help you produce it. Because obviously the motion picture side of the business is just one aspect of the business and we're not film producers. So when we saw that Johnny Depp, like just doing some research that he has his own film production company, we thought, then that makes sense. Maybe have him come in as a strategic partner in exchange from a couple points of equity so that not only he can star in the first one, but also have his film production company help us produce it.
Yeah.
And, it was a whole long journey. He's probably one of the toughest people to reach. Way tougher than the Minister of Finance in the country, by the way.
Yeah, but you're one of the most amazing people at reaching people. And the fact that you managed to not just reach them, not just get meetings with the production house, not just want them to be working with you, but also to be at his birthday party. I mean, it's incredible. Like the way you get people to understand the vision you have. And for me, the power of this podcast for people listening, not just an inspiration about how you've built the brand to where it is, but also so they can see the power of brand. That if you don't have a great brand, folks, you got nothing. You got cheap merchandise you're building on. Hardly anyone builds beautiful brand that's so powerful that everybody wants to work with you. And Shipsomnia have done that multiplied by 100. So
absolutely. I agree with that 100%. It all starts with the brand. I can honestly say that if we didn't, obviously we're talented people. Jay is amazing at what he does, and I'm such a perfectionist. I'm like, it's all about the brand. It's all about the brand. If it didn't really take time and effort into creating a quality brand, I don't think anybody at this level would even come close to it. Like, meaning like they wouldn't touch it. No. Because why would they they're up here, and why would they associate themselves with something that doesn't look up to par?
Yeah.
So that alone, again, the perception of the brand that we created, the look of the brand, the feel of the brand is so important. It's so important if you want to work with the best of the best.
Yeah, and you totally nailed it. And now you've got Hollywood stars. We had another one in here last week, another really big A-lister who adores your brand and wants to be part of it. You have, again, one of the biggest production houses in the world who are going to be working with your brand to try and make sure they create those short stories about the mythical legends of the sea. And then it brings us to the final portion, which kind of pulls it together, which is how you've managed to take blockchain and on some levels different forms of currencies to be able to not just solve massive ticketing problems that everybody has by trying to take all of these payments from multiple countries, but also to create a loyalty for the fans and the people who are Shipsomnia. And you got some pretty hardcore fans. Like when they start tattooing Shipsomnia on themselves, it's like, damn, that's when you got a brand. So all of you people out there going, oh yeah, Brian, I got a brand. I'm totally cool. Dude, has anybody friggin' tattooed your name on their leg? No? Then you don't have one. Okay? Shipsomnia you do.
Absolutely. I'd like to finish the sort of the motion picture side of the story before I get into it.
Okay.
So, yeah, so the Johnny Depp was definitely a journey, an experience, but it led us to something even better, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, it's not just about, again, it's not just about getting an actor to star in a trailer, but it's about selling the whole full motion picture vision to Hollywood.
Yeah.
And sort of navigating this world, I understood that, you got to package it right. You got to start from the top. And the top is kind of like the CEO in the movie business, which is the executive producer. So if you get a reputable executive producer on board, then the entire process of doing the talent outreach and casting directors and crew members, it's all done.
Follows.
Yeah, it's all done on their behalf. Instead of you running around trying to, reach actors directly and put it all together when you don't have any experience, by the way, it's like, okay, the motion picture side of the business, let's get a reputable executive producer on board. And that's when the Ridley Scott thing happened. And like I said, it's for them. I want to make this clear that if it wasn't for them fully buying into the vision of the motion picture, which means a full movie franchise around the IP of what we created, they would never put their stamp on it, because nobody cares to produce just a trailer for a festival vacation when there's a million other production houses that could do it, no-name production houses that could do it. So for them to even take the meeting with us, it was, okay, first, tease them. First of all, was reaching them, which Jay luckily met one of their directors, and that's where it all started. But first of all, was teasing them with one chapter of the storyline, and they were like, okay, before we accept this meeting, first of all, we're happy to sign an NDA. But for us to accept this meeting, we have to sort of be sold and get the full grasp and the full vision of the motion picture of how this could turn into a massive movie franchise. So they signed an NDA, and boom, we pitched it, described how, we're looking at the franchise as the Harry Potter of the sea, where Harry Potter wrote the book on wizardry, but we're rewriting the Legends of the Sea from a steampunk environmental perspective, exchanging magic for scientific ingenuity and tinkery, blah, blah, blah. And then we had them sort of review all of our 6-story synopses, which are different adventures sailing from different parts of the world.
And they loved it.
They absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
They think that it's absolutely brilliant that, these movie trailers, first of all, serve an immediate purpose, which is selling out these experiences, which generate a ton of revenue. But at the same time, they form a really strong foundation for a movie franchise. And not only do they want to help produce the movie franchise, but they think that the content, the stories that we create are so strong that they want to help develop a whole Marvel-like universe around it.
Yeah.
So my whole strategy of how do you scale? You gotta sell Hollywood on the motion picture vision, because once that happens, then of course you're gonna get to building your own cruise ships and floating amusement park and all that. So we couldn't be more excited where we are right now, actually.
Yeah, and again, another huge fan who's with you on the journey right now. And just in the last 2 minutes, so we have success. You're there. All of our investors here in LA absolutely adore it. And you're finalizing the extra people that you want to have around you for this last book on where Shipsomnia goes to, which is the pinnacle of everything. Just talk to us a little bit about cryptocurrency.
Yep.
And how that fits into it. And then just top it off with any advice that you can give to other entrepreneurs who are following through in your footsteps.
Sure. So for me, I assigned my COO to sort of navigate and explore the blockchain industry to see if there was, synergy and something that we could build within the blockchain. It initially started off, we had some technical issues like payment rejections from over 70 countries that can be solved, obviously, through blockchain. And then for me, it was also a matter of we're building a massive brand. So every major brand in the world has some tech into it. Even McDonald's has some tech into it these days. So for me, it was like, okay, being able to sort of integrate some technology into the brand at an early stage was a smart move in my mind, as long as it doesn't distract us from our core business.
Yeah.
So right now we're at a point where we navigated different services and protocols and platforms and potential partners within the blockchain, and we're in the process of closing a joint venture with a couple of blockchain companies that are going to help sort of build this whole ticketing and payment solution and reward ecosystem around the brand. And that is perfect for us because, one, it doesn't distract us from our core business, and we're just there to simply provide input and ideas based on real usage. Because obviously we're going to have tens of thousands of people sailing with us, so we actually bring real usage and input from as a case study from our fans. And obviously thinking a bit bigger, it's not just for Shipsomnia, but they want to help build a technology that can become an industry standard for the entire cruising industry.
I love it. So it brings the entire thing 360. Yeah, I want to, every bit of success you've had so far, and for all investors who are listening to this and are thinking, wow, this is the way a great business gets built. I said this from the very first day that I met Alessandra, which is now 6-7 months ago. I believe this is the Cirque du Soleil of 3-4 years' time. And for people who are looking at companies and wondering, how can you predict if a company is going to scale from going through, your pre-seed and your seed to Series A, B, C, and D, then success leaves clues. And everything that has been created within Shipsomnia so far leaves me without a shadow of a doubt that this is going to be one of those companies in 5-6 years' time that we're going to look back at and say, it was pretty obvious that they were going to hit, that type of valuation. So congrats on all you've done. I know we're going to get there, and just keep on building and growing and turn this into the juggernaut it's going to be. Share, firstly, any help that you can give to people who are coming through right from the beginning, maybe just a couple of tidbits, and then much more importantly, share your email address and details so that any investors, partners, or people who want to get involved in Shipsomnia can contact you.
Advice to other entrepreneurs and startup, I think for me, what's really important, and I believe that this could also be applied to every startup and entrepreneurs out there, is you got to understand your strengths and weaknesses, because every business has strengths and weaknesses. And, navigating this, starting from, the end of February when I was here, I understood that, of course, my weaknesses were that it's not a traditional sort of VC play. It's a business that is not appealing to VCs at an early stage. And I kind of knew not to keep on knocking on doors that weren't responding. But I understood that my business and its strength was 100% within the Hollywood industry.
Yeah.
Because every single time that we talked to, any producer or anybody in that world, they were like, oh my God, this is so brilliant.
Yeah.
They understand creative IPs. They live in the world of Disneyland and Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. And they know that quality creative IPs have endless boundaries when it comes to expansion. Not many people know that Harry Potter is worth $25 billion, for example.
Wow.
So once I understood that that was my strength, then, once you understand where your strength lies, you just have to keep on knocking on the right doors. And that will get you to, a bigger place and a better stage in your startup journey.
Yeah, beautiful. And how can people contact you?
So my email address is ale@madfreshentertainment.com, ale@madfreshentertainment.com. And my cell number is 562-541-2993.
Great. And then if anybody ever has any difficulty contacting Ali, just contact me, Brian at Expert Dojo. It has been and is a privilege being on the journey with you. I adore everything that you're building. I love the brand that you have. You're an inspiration to other entrepreneurs. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Brian. We're excited.
It's a wrap. Thanks for joining us. If you love the podcast, please empower your circle by sharing these stories. The Art of Startup War is brought to you by Expert Dojo. And remember, we invest in startups, $50,000 checks. Make sure you apply on our site if you are one of those great entrepreneurs looking to bring your company to the next level. As far as the Art of Startup War is concerned, we are back every single Tuesday at 10 a.m. So remember, check out the new episodes. If you want to find out what the investors think, check out season 1 or 2. But make sure you join us every single week.